Hi, mamas. I'm licensed marriage and family therapist Devi Empress, and these weeks I'm using my experience with hundreds of couples to answer questions picked from you guys, my listeners. Today's question is from Theodora L. About her partner struggling while she's also struggling. This is a really important question, so I'm going to read it out here. What should I do when my spouse, who is the non-birthing partner, is struggling with mental health issues and needs more from me when I'm already overwhelmed with recovery, adjusting, and I'm just tapped out and I don't have much to give? Okay. So first of all, thank you for your question. This is such an important one and it's a very difficult situation. So I want to start out by saying, I just want to share all the compassion in the world for couples in the situation where the birthing mom is depleted, adjusting, adapting. She's constantly needed. There's hormonal changes and just doesn't have anything to give aside from maintaining her own survival and caring for the baby. That's how it is in the early days. And I have honestly equal compassion for the partner who is struggling and who doesn't feel like it's okay for them to struggle and have needs. And they may be feeling even worse that they can't be there for you in ways that you need. And they realize that, and that's actually digging them deeper in a hole. So, I will say that when I've spoken with other professionals, sometimes there's this outlook about this, like, women and moms' needs have been neglected for a long time, and that I think there's an idea that we have to swing the pendulum and then, focus on mom and then maybe say like, okay, we're not going to sit here and like entertain needs of the partner. And I've heard that from some professionals and I don't agree with that. I think that it can just be that we hold both, that in situations like this, it's hard for both. And yes, we can acknowledge that absolutely the birthing mom has gone through a physical and hormonal, has gone through obviously so much physically and hormonally and is going through recovery and needs to be protected. Absolutely. And that doesn't cancel out the fact that like a spouse or partner may also be suffering and need help and deserve help too. It's not a competition. And I think we can, acknowledge that, of course, yes, mom does need to be protected during this time, and partner's going to need help too for them because they deserve it and because it's going to be better for the birthing mom as well. Okay. This is no one's fault. It's a hard situation and compassion can be mutual. It isn't just one of you guys that deserves it, right? So it's important to see this without fault. And I think there's space here to grieve and really tune into grief over the fact that it's hard to be in a situation like this and to know that you both deserve help and to know that it's hard to give each other that support at this time. Okay. So there are still opportunities here for relief and finding support through this transition when this is happening. And I'm going to start answering the question of how to navigate conversations like this and how to access more support so that this is not a continued state of unmet needs. Okay. My first recommendation is to scale down expectations. This is a time for survival where you need basic needs met. And I'm talking about food, water, some rest so that you guys can care for baby and meet baby's needs. And that includes mental health support. So it's not an expectation that everything's going to be like a walk in a land of tulips or something, but it shouldn't be actually extreme anxiety, deep depression at this time, that you need help for that. And that's part of survival. Okay. But definitely knowing that it's not going to look like a fairy tale and accepting that this is a messy time, a little bit of a chaotic time, and that you really just need to ground in basic needs at this time. And that's enough. Can actually bring some of the tension down so that you can find openings to appreciate some of the beautiful small moments in the day or some moments of connection that just look differently than maybe what you had idealized. Okay. And it's okay if you guys are not at 100%. Sometimes releasing some of the pressure and acknowledging the reality of the situation, and that for all couples, this is a huge transition, especially when you don't have the help that you need. And so giving grace to yourselves about that can relieve a ton of pressure in the pressure system. Okay. So remember, the grace of realistic expectations is incredibly important and soothing, and also meeting your basic needs: food, water, rest, your baby getting the care that they need, and also like lifeline mental health support. Okay. Now, I'm going to shift to like an individual thing for mom, which is if you're having, if you see that your spouse is struggling and you really do not have anything to give, it is important, just the same way people say, hey, you have to put on your own life jacket before you put on your child's. It's the same thing I would say with a spouse. So you need to make sure that you're okay yourself. It can be scary, unnerving, and worrisome to see your partner is really struggling when you really need them. That's very hard. Okay. So you need to have another adult in your family or your life or a therapist for support at this time. There are free groups at Postpartum Support International for both of you, actually. But to make sure that you have a touchstone of support and care. Okay. That's very important. You should not be doing this on your own. And so if your spouse is struggling at this time, there have to be some other people or a person or a therapist or a group that you have to support you. Okay. Again, the Postpartum Support International groups are free. So if you don't have the resources for, private pay therapy, whatever that is, look into those groups. Okay. Now, when it comes to approaching your partner, this is complicated. And I'm going to acknowledge, I just want to admit that this is complicated. So I want to say, yes, approach with compassion and approach authentically and try not to be hostile or criticize. But this is also a time in a mom's life where, yeah, you're tapped out. You don't have the same capacity to be regulated. And that's just natural, right? Where you have a lot of emotional needs. And so it really depends on what's going on for you, what stage you're in of recovery that you're in, and how you're doing and how much support you have from other people. Because it can be very simple for me to say, yeah, approach your partner with compassion, authenticity. And I wouldn't want anyone listening to this, even the person who asked this question, anyone else listening who can relate to this, to think, oh, well, I should be doing that too. God, why is that so hard for me? And that to be another like struggle or another pressure system that you're sitting with when there's already stress going on. So I would say the reality is the stage of life that you're in. If you don't have that capacity to do that, like, that's okay. I certainly don't want this to be like something on a checklist or some kind of unrealistic expectation that just feels unattainable. So this depends on how much capacity you have. If you can, if it doesn't feel like such a strain, just like a tip, just a nugget for you to have in your pocket, that if you do want to say to your partner, like, I think you need to see a therapist, or I think you need to go to this PSI group, or, we should talk to our spiritual leader, or whatever it is that you want, the support that you would like your partner to get to, that if you do that in a sense of like, hey, we both deserve help, you deserve to have some relief, there's no reason to be ashamed of this, this will help both of us and our family, that's going to land better usually than something that feels hostile or critical. Again, I'm going to keep repeating myself and say, and if it comes out hostile or critical because you are at your wit's end and haven't slept for nights on end and are really struggling, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I'm certainly not saying like, oh, it's okay to have behavior like that all the time, but this is a really, really hard time. Okay. This is why you need to connect with people outside of yourselves in these weeks and months. And this is what I'm getting to next, which is sharing resources can help. Okay. And I'm not talking about you spending hours online. I'm going to tell you, again, just go to PSI. There are groups for partners. There is a list of therapists that specialize in the postpartum stage that you just go to your, like just get the access to care in the most simple way that you can for people that are, therapists that are trained around the stage of life. You can also connect to if you're still meeting with your OB, you will be meeting with pediatricians. If you're there, they should also be able to connect you with help, because it is also protective, for you guys as a family, for both of you, for your children, that you guys get the help you need. And so, passing on information like that, sharing even some of my podcast episodes where I talk about what partners and dads can go through. There are books out there. I think there's a book, Postpartum Dad or something like that. And just, that will help normalize, kind of de-shame the situation. Your partner's not alone. this is something that happens to a significant amount of partners during this stage. And so sharing resources like that to help normalize, bringing in some other people that are in your lives, whether that's doctors that you're meeting with, or again, a spiritual advisor, or a trusted family friend, like a mutual friend or something. Bringing other people in, because again, I talk about like moms, you shouldn't be on your own, but also as couples, you shouldn't be on your own, and you do need support. Okay. Whether that's from a couples therapist or my coaching programs, or, again, a trusted friend, or doctors that are linking you to resources, or Postpartum Support International. There are resources out there for you guys. Okay. If you are in individual therapy, ask your therapist, can I bring my partner in, if they're willing to come in and give space, or if your therapist can refer you to someone who is maybe more skilled in relationship work. It doesn't even have to be months and months of couples therapy, but like a handful of sessions at this time to get a handle on, hey, something here is not working. We both need support. Not trying to attack you. If there's resistance, maybe a therapist can help with that kind of thing as well. I also want to be really forthright that there's no quick fix solution or tip I can give. If a partner is consistently resistant, no matter how something is being approached, no matter what kind of resources are being shared, and I have seen this in my office, okay, there can be deep shame, or really strong narratives that are leading to a denial or a resistance around acknowledging that there's some suffering, or that there's some struggle that needs to be addressed. And sometimes men or partners can be socialized. Maybe they were socialized or brought up in ways where their worth is tied up to their competency. And there's something very shameful about not having an easy time, not being competent. This actually happens for birthing moms too, where we feel like this should all be natural, and why am I not taking to this naturally? So, I really get annoyed when like professionals are telling people, 5 tips and total transformation. And, okay, well, maybe sometimes people are open to it, but sometimes there is real resistance, and that's another hard place to be. And it's important to both be straightforward and honest while being compassionate. But when I say it's important to be, direct, and also like try not to be hostile, that doesn't mean neglecting your own thoughts or needs, or ignoring the reality that you're living. And you don't need to ignore kind of sharing the cost of your partner not getting help, and what that means to you, and what it means to your family dynamic. And that should be communicated. And if there's still resistance to getting help, then that is something, frankly, that you'd have to see if you're okay with long term, as weeks go by, as months go by, and maybe years go by. And it definitely is a call for extra support outside of yourselves. Okay. So if there's a willingness to reach out to couples coaching with me, or a couples therapist, I sincerely hope you both get the support you deserve. And my links with my offers are below. Okay. I hope this was somewhat helpful. Subscribe to my podcast here and on YouTube for more weekly insight and support into your relationship after kids. As always, I'm here for you and your family. Goodbye.